to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, October 3rd. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, the official podcast of the fantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by CJ, the Hitman Hickman, and Jason Cabrera. What is up, guys?
What up, dude? What's going on, world?
Hey, Griffin, what's up?
Not too much. Another weekend of football happened, and we are going to push forward. We are a quarter of the way through the season.
Aww.
How has that already happened?
It comes and goes, man.
It's such
crazy.
Painfully for me. Painfully.
As much as we talk about how it is a marathon for fantasy and for these teams, it really is such a short season compared to all of the professional sports. But I mean, that's no surprise. That's not news. If you're watching on YouTube, wondering where the video is, the show is in a little bit of a transition right now, and the video will be back. But you can enjoy at least the audio format, like the vast majority of our listeners that listen in. So we'll have video again in the future, I promise. But we do have an amazing show for you guys today. Today we're going to be talking about our studs and duds for week number 4, and of course taking a look at some of our top waiver wire targets for week number 5, and as always bringing you all of the top headlines from around the league. As always, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. I can't talk. And the easiest way to follow the show itself is on Twitter, at the FF Fanatics. You get breaking news and updates, and, just give us a follow. That would be amazing. We get so many more follows, so many more questions every single week than we even have followers. It kind of blows my mind. So yeah, just give us a follow. It makes life so much easier for you guys. You don't have to go looking for the information. And if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Help us keep doing what we are doing, keeping these lights on, bringing you this free product that we love to do. We want to bring you guys all home some championships and get yourself a lot of cool perks along the way. We had a great show last week and some very cool information coming up this week, and we'll get to that. But as always, we're going to start with our warm-up question of the day, and what was your takeaway from week number 4? Guys, did you have any takeaways?
Yeah, man. What is going on with Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota? Are they brothers? Like, are they stepbrothers or something like that? Long lost brothers? Because these boys cannot stay away from each other in the injury report. Good gracious. Mariota goes down, and then somewhere other in Denver, Derek Carr goes down. That's just crazy to me. But my God, I mean, we're going to get to this guy later on, but the freaking Houston Texans, man, go out there and have a game. And this boy, my man, Deshaun Watson, just, oh my God. I'm no spoilers, but my goodness. I appreciate you, young fellas.
He could be real
this week.
We could be seeing the start of something special.
Yeah, a star is born.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I think so.
Jason, did you have anything?
Well, it was some of the games I watched, it was a field goal contest. I mean, I watched the Cardinals games, obviously, and that was back and forth, and didn't make me feel good watching that, although Carson Palmer did have himself a game, 357 yards and a touchdown, so, decent day for him. But overall, that game was just back and forth. My girlfriend calls me and goes, "Oh, this is a great game. It's back and forth." Really? I go, sit down, I recorded it, I watched it, and I'm like, you and I have different opinions on what is a great game. Then I watched the Kansas City game, and again, I mean, lots of field goals, not a lot of touchdowns, kind of interesting. But here we go with Kansas City, man. I'm telling you, with Alex Smith throwing that ball down the field now, being able to go vertical, he's opened up a different part of his game, and this team looks like the best team in football right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the only undefeated team in football right now, so there you go. And speaking of, did the Jets forget how to scam for Sam? They've got 2 wins now.
Apparently. They can't even lose properly. Can't even lose properly. That's what's going on.
It's bad.
Great.
That's crazy to me.
What is happening with Miami? Well, I mean, one more thing. What is happening with the Dolphins? I mean, good gracious, we go into preseason. Jay Cutler gets signed. He's supposed to be the guy. He's supposed to be the guy that's supposed to save this offense. And ever since then, week 2 for everybody else, but week 1 for them, they've been hot garbage. This offense is being held captive. I feel like Blake Bortles just transferred his soul to Jay Cutler, and now he's there in Miami ruining this offense.
In Jay Cutler's defense, he did try to retire. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, they brought him in late. I mean, he came in during the preseason. I mean, he knew the offense, but didn't have any time to build up a rapport with any of the wide receivers. And I know Adam Gase, who knows? Maybe it's the play calling. Maybe it's the offense. The offensive line is not great. It's a lot of it is probably Jay Cutler. I think it will improve going forward. But yeah, it's essentially 2 games in a row where they were shut out, except for a magical last-second drive last week in Week 3. So. Yeah, of course, culminating in a decent week for Jay Cutler and Devontae Parker, which should not have been the case. But yeah, it's bad. I think it'll get better. They've got better matchups coming up, but it doesn't get much better than the Saints. But like I said a lot on the Friday show, which you guys obviously neither were able to attend, London is a crazy thing. It was technically a home game for them, but it was obviously a long distance road game. So they have yet to have a home opener on the season because their home opener was supposed to be week 1, which obviously they didn't play because of the hurricane. So maybe they just need to be home. So they've got a not great matchup coming up. I believe it's the Titans, if I remember correctly. I'm not looking at the schedule in front of me. But, being at home should do some wonders for them in front of a home crowd. So we'll see. I mean, time will tell. Any other takeaways, guys? Are you ready to move on?
Let's move it.
I mean, there's plenty of other stuff we could talk about, but we'll probably hit a lot of it as we move through the show. So let's move into our studs and duds for week number 4. Starting, of course, with your studs, your top 3 performers at each position. And, of course, this is 6 points per passing touchdown, which is why maybe the quarterbacks look different than in your league. But number 1, speaking of this guy earlier on, Deshaun Watson, good for 41.7 points. Good for 5 touchdowns on the week. 4 passing, 1 rushing, 283 yards, not outstanding, but good, and 24 rushing yards. Did have an interception, but obviously not enough to deflate what was a monster week for him. 5 touchdowns. And yeah, at home with the Titans, they handled their business. So yeah, Deshaun Watson in a good matchup. He looks like he is kind of clicking. He's figuring it out after a slow first 2 weeks. He's been looking good the last 2. So guys, what's your comfort level with Deshaun Watson going forward?
I mean, I like him matchup based. I mean, he has a tough matchup against the Chiefs this week, but I think you look at the rest of his schedule, man. There's games there where you should feel real confident to put him in there if you're struggling at a quarterback position or even on a bye week. If you just happen to pick him up in a waiver wire and you stashed him on your bench and you got to play him last week, kudos to you. But I think, with these high-name quarterbacks that we have, and they have tough matchups, I would confidently put him in there and ride with him.
He's easily a streaming option for me going forward. With little fear. I mean, he is I think quarterback 6 on the season right now. So not too bad. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Well, my comfort level is definitely raising. He is trended up every single game. I mean, the first game, 4 points, obviously, not great. Second game, 19 points, then 26 points, then 45 points. I mean, he's trending up, and obviously this was an anomaly. 4 touchdowns, and then a rushing touchdown. That's absolutely phenomenal. He's not going to do that every game, but I definitely think that his floor is around that Cincinnati game at 19 points, and this would be his ceiling here at Tennessee. So the fact that he's going to fluctuate around in there is pretty good, and that's got to make him, like you said, it's got to make him a top streaming option moving forward through the season. And I think if he continues to play like this consistently, he may be somebody you may want to put on your bench and start starting.
Yeah, I mean, if you exclude week 1, which was kind of, welcome to the NFL, he's had at least 41 yards or a touchdown rushing on top of his passing performance. So I like it. I'm not wild about his matchup this week. He has Sunday Night Football at home against the Chiefs. He is at home, which is good, but not a juicy matchup. But then they host the Cleveland Browns the following week, which he'll definitely be a top streaming option for me. Awesome. So I mean, he could be a guy that maybe this is the week that you grab him if you've got bye weeks, you've got problems, if you have space on your bench, because that is an awesome matchup. Long-term thinking for streaming, kind of stuff we usually talk about on Patreon, but we'll mention it here. We're talking about the guy. Why not? So, yeah, Deshaun Watson, your top-performing quarterback in fantasy in week number 4. Cam Newton, he came in. He finally had a good week, 39.4 points, and this is after we all basically said that you can bury Cam Newton. To be fair, it was against the Patriots, which seems crazy to say, knowing what we know about the Patriots, but that defense is a dumpster fire this season. They are statistically one of the worst defenses in the league right now in a number of categories. So, I mean, the Patriots, of all things, have become a streaming option when playing against. So, 39.4 fantasy points, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, also rushed for a 4th touchdown. So, I mean, hey, that's pretty darn good. You'll take that in fantasy. Another 43 yards, of course, on top of that rushing. So, Cam Newton, are you guys feeling good about him long-term going forward? Did this right the ship for you, or was this just a good matchup and he's bound to have these breakout games every now and then? Because that's kind of the way I lean. I'm still not buying into Cam Newton season long, at least.
I mean, I'll take the lead here because I know Jason is not a Cam Newton fan. But I think if you have been teetering on the fence with Cam, I think this is a good start. This strengthens your belief in him. But I still think you need to pump your brakes just a little bit. I mean, he has a tough matchup this week going against Detroit. After that, he's got the Eagles. I mean, so there's still tough matchups that I can see you still being on the fence. But I think you got to take this for what it is. I mean, this is a good show from him, and it should increase your faith in him that, if this offense starts to build some momentum and, the offensive line can protect him and his his wide receivers and running backs should start making plays from him. Cam is a good play. Right now, I just feel like this offense has been stagnant, it's been stale, and they just haven't been clicking. This is a good game that they just started to build some momentum and stuff started to get clicking.
Yeah, well, we will see. I mean, obviously, time will tell. And then Andy Dalton. I mean, we hope he right the ship here, but I think it was an amazing matchup against the Browns. 286 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. That's pretty good. You'll take that, obviously. I still look. Andy Dalton was one of those guys that I know a lot of analysts around the industry were talking about as being one of those sleeper top 12 number 1 fantasy quarterbacks this year, and I think it could still happen. He's got plenty of weapons, but that offensive line is still atrocious, and he was going against a bad defense that was missing some key contributors. So. Some that were fresh back, so they still don't have their legs under them. So I'm not necessarily overly excited about Andy Dalton. I'm still going to play the matchups, but this was a good right the ship type game for me here. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Jason?
Yep.
All right, so we're in agreement. So let's move.
Go for it.
Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, you know how I feel about Cam Newton, okay? He had a great game. This was a great game. Obviously, the Patriots are not themselves this year. For me, he's still radioactive. I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole.
That's fair. Jameis Winston, Eli Manning, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers were your next bunch of quarterbacks as well. Let's move on to the running back position where you have... everybody started him. It's just one of those things. I don't think anyone's expecting this performance. Le'Veon Bell on the road in Baltimore, 144 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, another 42 yards receiving. He basically did it all. I mean, they had to rush the ball 35 times, so they ran it right down the Ravens' throats in an area where they were missing starting defensive linemen. They took advantage of that, and he ended up putting up a pretty darn good fantasy stat line. So, I mean, this is the Le'Veon Bell that you expect week in and week out. He's been getting his feet under him. I guess he's been getting in game shape. Seems like he's there, and he's handling this workload. They are running him into the ground, though. Injury risk concerns me here with Le'Veon, but, I mean, you're not going to sit him, obviously. You're going to run him. He's the top option in fantasy right now, I would say. Would you guys... I mean, I think we would all agree with that.
Right. You're correct.
I mean, you got to look at that rookie, over there in Kansas City. But other than that, yeah, I would definitely say top option other than him.
Well, I mean, Kareem Hunt, obviously, he looks great, but, Le'Veon Bell has a long track record, and this is what we expect from him. Kareem Hunt has been seemingly on an unsustainable pace, and he kind of came back to earth this past week, last night on Monday Night Football. He didn't have that, earth-shattering game like he's been having.
It wasn't crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
He went for what was it, 100? He did break 100 yards if I remember correctly, but it didn't score. So, I mean, gives you a much more average week.
Well,
I think it was like 14 points. I don't have it in front of me.
Right, and to be fair, nobody really scored in that game. There was not a lot of scoring in that game.
Tyreek Hill barely did anything. So, yeah, it was
he did
a good defensive performance by the Redskins. But, I think he was just he just got taken out of game script. I mean, just because of the situation. I mean, Andy still pounded the ball to him, but, the defense made it their due diligence that he wasn't going to be the reason that they lose.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, he still put up a darn good performance, but I mean, okay, for all the listeners out there, when I say he has to return to the mean, it's an unsustainable pace, this is what I mean. Because it's just unrealistic to expect a guy to top 100 yards and get at least one touchdown, usually multiple because it includes the passing game, every single week. It's just unsustainable, even for the elite guys. I mean, they have down weeks. So, is he still a top option? Obviously. But, I mean, if you were expecting him to get you 43 points every single week, then you're obviously new to fantasy football. Let's move on to our next guy, which was Todd Gurley, getting it done again. Todd Gurley has been in this top tier of running backs for the last, 3 weeks now? Yeah. Since week 2.
Yeah.
Week 2, he was the number 2. Week 3, he was the number 1. And then this week, he was the number 2 again. So getting it done. 121 rushing yards. No rushing touchdown, but another 94 yards receiving and a receiving touchdown. Great stat line. And, of course, we've been talking about this for a while. He's got a gauntlet ahead of him. Seattle, Jacksonville, Arizona, bye week. That doesn't help you, obviously. Giants, Houston, Vikings. And then it starts getting a little bit easier. But, I mean, on the other hand, some of these teams are banged up, and some of them are not performing to what we would expect. Seattle, I mean, they've been sustaining some injuries, and they don't look as stout as you would have expected. Jacksonville, I mean, has been hit or miss. They just let Bilal Powell go crazy on them, and Elijah McGuire. And Arizona has not been as stout as they've been in years past. So, I mean, all of a sudden, this is looking like a decent script for this guy who, as I've been saying for weeks now that he's involved in the passing game, I don't think you have to worry about game script dictating his usage. I mean, here, he almost had as many receiving yards as he had rushing, and he got a receiving touchdown. He's had a receiving touchdown in each of his last 3 games. So, yeah, I'm all in on Todd Gurley. What are your guys' thoughts?
He's inconsistent, and that's what I said he needed to do this year was to show consistency. The bottom line here is this team, this McVay-led team, this is what he needed to reinvigorate him. And I think that this team is going to go forward. I think they're going to even out a little bit because they're not going to sustain this crazy amount of points being scored every single week, especially when they go up against divisional rivals. But Todd Gurley is definitely for real. They've upgraded around him. So yeah, I'm very comfortable. I have him in our keeper league, and I just plug him in and play. I don't worry about it.
Yeah, man. I like that he's got that stank off of him from last year, man. And each week he's getting better. I mean, he's getting more comfortable. They're getting momentum. You know what I'm saying? Jared Goff is getting better. That's going to affect the running game. The running game has been improving. But Jared Goff has been doing really well in the passing game. And Sean McVay, like Jason said, he has just breathed fresh life into Todd Gurley, and it's showing on the field. So I like to play. And, if I had him in some leagues, then I would definitely go plug and play him and, just let him do his thing.
Yeah. I have him in our league of record, and I am riding that hot hand. I don't see him cooling down. He's going to have some tougher matchups. It may not be a top 3 performance every week, but he'll be top 12 unless things go crazy, which they do in fantasy football, so we'll see. And then Ezekiel Elliott raided the ship against the Chargers, against the Rams. So, 85 yards, rushing touchdown, 54 yards receiving, another touchdown, 2 touchdowns. That'll get you a good fantasy week. 25.9 points. I can't talk today. So Ezekiel Elliott seemingly getting his head in the game, much better at home. And, yeah, you're going to keep playing him until he's no longer an option or throughout the rest of the season. I think that's universal. That's why he was widely considered a top 3 pick. Agreed?
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed. All right, let's move on to the top wide receivers. Oh, yeah, and some of those running backs, as I mentioned. Lamar Miller finally got right. I'm still nervous about Deonta Foreman, but good to see. Bilal Powell, Leonard Fournette were your next tier, and then Elijah McGuire. So 2 running backs combined to put up a very good week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's all the more reason I'm not scared of Todd Gurley's matchup against them. All right, now moving on to the wide receiver position, where we start off with Jordy Nelson. He is, yet again, a top contributor, and 2 touchdowns will do that. So Jordy Nelson goes out, does 75 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I only see this continuing, especially with Devonta Adams getting hurt from that insanely illegal hit, which Danny Trevathan got suspended for.
Yeah, he deserved to be suspended for that. That was headhunting at its absolute worst.
Yeah.
Frustration, man. That's how I get with these guys, man. You get beat on, and you just lose your sense, and they just,
Yeah.
It's something.
You'll lose some money now.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, if someone's wrapped up and the play is dead, and then you come in and you headhunt them, you deserve. I mean, look, I was part of many analysts out there that were calling for this suspension, and it happened. Only 2 games though, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, and how long people get suspended, like 4 games for doing way less than trying to like kill somebody. Yeah. Well, that's a conversation for another day though. Let's see. Your next one, Devin Funches. Bunches of Funches, as I know a couple of people call him. Some colleagues. 70 yards and another 2 touchdowns. So another decent stat line. The wide receiver position as a whole was not as good as last week, but, I mean, these guys were good. Are you guys rushing out to grab Devin Funches right now? He's only owned in 2.4% of leagues.
I mean, if you're really hurting a wide receiver, I can see you going to get him. I mean, you got to. At the end of the day, you got to look at the opportunity. I mean, if you're hurting a wide receiver, that means you went heavy on running backs, or your wide receivers are injured. And right now, you got to take advantage of this opportunity that this guy is getting he's getting the touches, he's getting the looks from Cam. If you watch the highlights of this game, you see that blown coverage by the Patriots. You're not going to get that from every defense, where he's just clearly just wide open. He barely has to do anything to catch that ball, and he's right there in the end zone. But you got to take advantage of the opportunity right now. He's getting the look. I mean, I have him I have him in 1 league, and right now I'm hurting wide receiver, and I'm looking to plug him in this week.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think he's definitely an add in deeper leagues, and it all boils down to how much of a believer in Cam Newton as a pocket passer you are. So, yeah, Devin Funches, definitely an option in deeper leagues. And then Tyrell Williams, kind of the same conversation. All fantasy analysts like this guy. But the team seems to just want to bury him on the depth chart. Maybe that's because he brings a similar skill set to other players. But, I mean, he's a guy who finished as a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy last year. And here, he got an opportunity, 115 yards at a touchdown. And I think that given the opportunity, he could do this week in and week out. So, again, a guy that I'm not starting unless it's a bye week or a streaming option or someone in front of him goes down, which is going to give him an uptick in targets because, I mean, he did this on 6 targets. He caught all 5 passes for 115 and a touch. But, he's also had weeks like the previous week where he got you 15, or the week 1 and week 2 where he both weeks got you 54 yards exactly. So, I like him. He's just part of a very, very deep pass-catching core in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And, again, if injuries happen in front of him, his stock will be, I think, the first to rise. But they also have Mike Williams coming back eventually, too. So, we'll see. These are all reasons. I roster him in a couple leagues, but this is why I'm not recommending to go pick him up. He is owned in 51.8% of leagues, so I guess a lot of people still are holding out hope on him for more weeks like this. I don't know. What are you guys doing with Tyrell Williams?
I mean, I'm spinning the wheel if I want him or not, because, like you said, the opportunities are there, the potential is there, but it's just when is it going to show? What week you going to show? I mean, there's nothing worse. You put in a guy out there like, okay, look, you looking at the offense. You're doing your research. You're game passing it. You're seeing what's going on. Okay, here he's getting these looks. Okay, he's going to get some sweet matchup this week. They're 20th against the pass. He's got to get the looks, and then he goes out there and put up 5.4 fantasy points. That's frustrating, and you don't want to do that, and that'll scare you away. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he manages to have a big week against the Giants this week, which are a top 4 defense against the pass. But if he goes out and puts up 2 solid weeks, I think that you'll be able to move him for a pretty piece. So, but it is on the road in New York, so I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. Jason, do you have anything to add before we move on?
I'm very tentative on Tyrell Williams just because he is buried in the depth chart. There are so many mouths to feed on that offense. So he had a great week, but I preach caution.
Yeah. Keenan Allen, 138 yards, not too many spots down below him. After Tyrell Williams, it goes DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. Will Fuller, how about that for a comeback game?
Yeah.
For a speedster, only put up 35 yards, but he also got you 2 touchdowns, and some of those were very impressive. Saw those highlights. If you haven't, go look at them. Michael Thomas and then Keenan Allen, as we mentioned. Then Terrell Pryor finally got a little bit right. He got 70 yards and a touchdown. So,
Yeah, but he still dropped some passes. And
he still didn't look good
when you were watching him.
No, he's still. If you didn't drop him already, I might be trying to trade him right now. Like, oh look, he got right, and he did it against a top tier defense. And it's his bye week, so it's not like his value is going anywhere. So you might be able to move him.
Yep.
I'm not. I think he's filling Deshaun Jackson's role. He's going to be volatile week to week. I'm over the Terrell Pryor in Washington experience.
Get him out of there.
And I have him in a couple leagues, so that's exactly what I'm going to be trying to do. I have some Redskins fans in a number of my leagues, so I know who I'll be targeting. Let's move on to the tight end position, where, man, this is just a dumpster fire of a position.
Always.
We have Tyler Kroft, and if you're wondering who that is, it's a Cincinnati Bengals tight end, which is not Tyler Eifert. Tyler Kroft.
Laura Kroft's brother.
A different Tyler.
Yeah.
Different
Tyler. They also have Tyler Boyd on that team. They've got a lot of Tylers in Cincinnati. But
they like Tylers on that team.
They really do. 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. I like him, especially while Tyler Eifert is gone. He's got that back injury, no real timetable in his return. So, clearly it's plug and play at the tight end position. They like these pass-catching tight ends, and he went out there, had a good week against, as we mentioned, a bad defense. So take that into account.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do when you play a bad defense. I preach a little bit of caution here because they are going against the Buffalo Bills next week, and the Bills are much better on defense than the Cleveland Browns. So, just putting that out there. Travis Kelce, Kelce is Kelce. He's performing at least to the draft stock you put into him this week. 111 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. You got to love that. And then Cameron Brate getting it done. 80 yards and a touchdown. So, this is what you want to see.
He's back.
Cameron was back. OJ did good too.
OJ had a good game. It was great.
Yep, 2 weeks in a row with a touchdown. Is that enough for you guys to think, oh, I need to start this guy? Or is this, for me, it's still too dangerous because, the number 5 tight end, as you guys are mentioning, O.J. Howard, who had 63 yards and a touchdown. It's a committee, and O.J. Howard is blocking more than he's catching right now, just like they said he would.
It's enough for me to think about grabbing him and putting him on my bench. Don't know about starting him. I'll have to play the matchups with that. But if he stays consistent, I would think about it. We saw how great he was last year, and he's got O.J. Howard there to contend with now, and that touchdown is going to give O.J. Howard more looks. So you got to preach caution with these guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I think at a position that is very, very hurting for most fantasy people.
Yeah.
At the tight end position, I think you got to do at least take a look at it. If you can get anything from that. To me at this point right now, if you can get anything over 6 points at the tight end position, I think that's golden for me.
Yeah, that's basically what it boils down to. The number of tight ends that didn't even get you 7 points is staggering. I basically stopped typing the tight ends into the doc when we're talking about our duds because I was just like, what's the point? They basically all crap the bed with a handful of
they're all
exceptions.
Yeah.
The number 4 tight end in between these 2 Tampa Bay tight ends was A.J. Derby, which you're also probably wondering who's that. He's a tight end for the Denver Broncos. 75 yards and a touchdown. But at least we have a familiar face at number 6, Charles Clay, who was my sleeper tight end coming into the season. 112 yards. Didn't get a touch this game, but hey, it's been enough and consistent enough that he is the number 3 tight end on the season. So, I'm really loving that sleeper pick. He's we have our league of record is a 2 tight end league, and he's been my top tight end, and I'm loving it because I got him for basically nothing. I don't remember how much I spent on him, but I know it wasn't much. With that, I guess let's go ahead and move into our duds of the week, which, as per usual, there are so many. Starting with Jay Cutler, 5.06 points. So, not
Jay
exactly.
Deja vu over here.
Yeah. So, yeah, Jay Cutler in England, not exactly exciting. Hopefully there are better things on the horizon. Case Keenum, 8.76. Not great there. The Vikings are struggling, but that's what happens when you lose your starting quarterback and now your starting running back.
Yeah.
Some possible good news coming to that team. We'll talk about that very soon in the news, but yeah, it's not good. Matthew Stafford, even though they won 10.06 points rather, not a great performance. So those are some of your top duds. You also have Matt Ryan, 10.48. Again, the Bills are better on defense than advertised. Joe Flacco, 11.4. He still doesn't look like he's in game shape coming off of that back injury. Derek Carr, 11.72. He got injured. Ben Roethlisberger, 12.54. Tough matchup. Trevor Siemian, 13.26. A bit of a letdown there. Blake Bortles, 13.4. Better than I can't say better than I thought because it was against the Jets. The Jets are kind of sneaky good at defense on home. And Tyrod Taylor, 14.48 points. So these are some of the guys who definitely let you down. Some running backs who let you down. Adrian Peterson, 0.4. Yeah.
You gotta drop him.
It's
You got to.
It's bad.
You just got to.
This is what I was saying last week.
You can't. You just can't. They're just not doing anything with him.
No, even when they were up, they were running Alvin Kamara out there, or Kamara, depending on who you talk to. But and Adrian Peterson is just there on the side, standing, pacing around, not getting an opportunity. I've been hearing all these rumors circulating on fantasy Twitter and just around whispers around the industry, and what people want to see is like, what are the chances Adrian Peterson gets traded back to the Vikings? Because now Dalvin Cook's down.
I would if I was them.
For fantasy,
if they want to be savage, they can go get. If they want to be savage, they can go get Mark Ingram. That's what they should be targeting.
Savagery.
Yeah.
That would be rough.
I'd be very intrigued to see what they'd sell for.
Real quick, that would be amazing. Yeah. Real quick, I just need to apologize to our listeners because I'm looking at this list of duds of running backs, and every single one of the running backs that I crowed about in the offseason in the off season is on this list this week. So I apologize.
Yeah, me too. Joe Mixon.
Yep.
Isaiah Correll.
Joe Mixon. Lynch,
Melvin Gordon. I mean, he did have a tough matchup, though. Come on, Melvin Gordon.
True.
Going against the Eagles, we've been shutting down running backs outside of a Kareem Hunt week.
And he was banged up coming into the game.
And it's Melvin Gordon. So
it's Melvin Gordon.
Whoa.
Look,
sorry.
Anyone who's been with the show for a while knows that I am not a Melvin Gordon truther. I am not happy about him. His yards per touch across his career are abysmal. But, workload, volume, opportunity, it's all there. I mean, that's why you draft him as a number one running back, and I think when healthy and the right opportunity, he's still going to be able to put those numbers up, but not this week.
Good use of abysmal.
Yeah. Thank you. I try. So, again, Adrian Peterson, 0.4. Marshawn Lynch, 1.2. I mean...
Killing me, Marshawn. You're killing me, beast mode.
What more is there to say? We talked about this extensively last week. They are not using him, and especially not using him properly. So, I mean, if you didn't trade him last week, you're definitely going to have a hard time moving him this week because it's tough. Value.
You're going to have a hard time, right? You're going to have a hard time moving him all year because until he has a big game, you're not moving him. No one's going to want him.
He's going to have to string probably one or two together after his season so far.
Yep.
Paul Perkins, 1.9. He got banged up, of course. Chris Thompson finally came back to earth after I said that this was probably going to happen. Another guy kept calling for a return to earth and returning to the mean, the averages, an unsustainable pace, 2.7 points. So, low volume, low opportunity. I mean, he plays a tough matchup or it just doesn't break the way he wants it to. This is the stat line you're looking for. That's why I keep saying he's incredibly boom bust.
They were using Samaje Perine, too. They
absolutely.
were using Samaje Perine a lot.
No, I agree, but Chris Thompson was a top 3 running back on the season going into week 4, and that's what I was saying. It's been... And this is why I preach to you guys, workload is much more important than production because they need to be productive for fantasy, but if they're not getting the workload, it's volatile week to week, and that's what we saw here. 2.7 points from a guy who was the number 3 on the season. So, and that's what's going to happen going forward in tough matchups, and he's buried on the depth chart. Isaiah Crowell, 2.7. Again, he's borderline droppable. You're not going to because he's a workhorse back, but Duke Johnson seems to be getting more work and at least more opportunity because they're always down, them being the Browns, of course.
Yeah,
so
he's getting those passes.
Yeah, Duke Johnson gets all the work in the passing game. So Isaiah Crowell, tough times continue. All the pieces are there. Everything the entire equation we talked about coming into the year that Jason was harping on, and we all signed up. The industry as a whole, the vast majority of the industry was very excited about Isaiah Crowell this year, especially with that upgraded offensive line. But game script is eliminating him from the game, which obviously is not helping you in fantasy. Ty Montgomery, we talked about on Friday's show. He got hurt. Melvin Gordon, 2.9 points. We just talked about that. Tough matchup coming into the game, hurt as well. DeMarco Murray, 3.5. Really tough matchup on the road against a division rival and conference rival. Joe Mixon, 4.8. That was my start of the week. Everything was there. Every single thing was there. Just didn't happen. And, of course, then Giovanni Bernard breaks a screen pass to the house. So that didn't help to watch that happen. You're like, oh, that could have been Mixon. So, great. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, 4.9, which shocked me with the way that game went.
Great matchup, too.
Great matchup. Mike Gillislee, 4.9. Not too surprised there. Jay Ajayi, 5.4. No Miami Dolphin did well.
Start of the week, and he goes out there and crap and just do nothing.
Yep.
I blame
all over the bed.
I blame Cutler. I blame him. Everything. I blame this on Cutler because he does not move the ball. If you cannot move the ball on the passing game, it will affect the running game, and that's exactly what happened.
I agree. Let's see. Mark Ingram, 6.2. Same thing. It was. They're
freaking Saints, man.
They're committed to a committee.
They got so many running backs.
Yep.
Come on.
They are committed.
Use them.
And then Mark Ingram was out of the game, and they let Alvin Kamara kind of salt away that win. So, Mark Ingram, 6.2 points. Chris Johnson, 6.2. And then Chris Carson, 6.6. Those were your main duds from the running back position in week number 4. Wide receiver. This list just goes on and on.
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper, yet again. 0.9 points. His second week in a row being in your bottom 3, your 3 biggest duds.
So bad.
I mean, we're all freaking out about Amari Cooper at this point, but we talked about this on a Patreon show. Are we still thinking about trying to buy low on this guy? Because I am. I think there's better things on the horizon, but I mean, I'm talking like low enough, like a bench player, because his production has been abysmal, and now, as we'll talk about, Derek Carr's not going to be around for a while. So, and with Michael Crabtree being down, it just showed that he was getting all this coverage rolled his way, and he could not do anything about it. To be fair, it was against the Broncos, though. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Elite players don't get shut down.
True.
Great elite players don't get shut down. And Amari Cooper has been shut down a lot recently. So it'd be super low. Like you said, it would be like waiver wire or a bench player, maybe. But right now, until Amari Cooper pulls his head out of wherever it is right now, starts catching some passes, no, I've officially cooled on him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take him for free. I mean, it's one of those things where, and I talk about this all the time. Yeah, if it always watch who is dropped on Wednesday or whatever day your waivers go through, because players have to be dropped for players to be picked up, and sometimes they're going to drop players that will surprise you. And if Amari Cooper gets dropped, his ceiling is so high that he's worth a stash and just wait and see what happens, because they have a terrible schedule, basically season long. But I mean, there's some good matchups in there, and if everything looks right, he might be worth a flex option for you. But yeah, I've cooled on Amari Cooper season long, but I think that there's still opportunity, and he's definitely still worth rostering because we know the potential. But again, Derek Carr being down really limits what I would give up for him. I mean, if I own him, I'm freaking out. If I don't, I think waiver wire pickup is about the only way I'm acquiring him right now if I can get him for nothing. CJ, anything to add?
No parts.
No,
nothing.
No parts to do with him. And that's fair. I understand. I in a lot of ways agree with you. Demaryius Thomas was next, 1.1 points. This kind of surprised me, but I mean, I guess it wasn't an overly high-scoring game, was it?
No,
it really wasn't.
I mean, but it's a divisional game, so you got to chalk that up. That does count for something.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Trevor Siemian's his quarterback, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, Simeon had a bad week. I mean, Thomas is on this list. Emmanuel Sanders isn't too much further down it, so bad week as a whole.
Yep.
Eric Decker, 1.3 points. I mean, he's continuing to look bad. So, I don't know. Is it time for him to call it a career, or is he just having a hard time in Tennessee with the workload? I mean, obviously, Marcus Mariota got hurt, and they had a tough matchup.
Yeah. New face in a new place, man. He needs a year to acclimate.
Could be. Sammy Watkins, 1.7. Yeah. Sorry, Jason.
Sorry.
Tough matchup.
Jeremy Maclin, 2.1. Tough matchup. Emmanuel Sanders, 2.7. Yep, no, we talked about that. Julio Jones, he got banged up, 3 points. T.Y. Hilton, my sit of the week, 3 points. Golden Tate, my start of the week, though, 3.1. That's really depressing.
Right after him.
Yeah, back to back. I was really smart and then really dumb, and Xavier Rhodes didn't really follow him.
Dumb. You weren't dumb. Everything was there for him to have a good game. He just didn't do it.
Yeah, just Stafford did not have a good game. So they scored with the running game, and Golden Tate. I thought he played well, and I don't know. It just did not accumulate. I mean,
he's killing me this year.
All the stats, all the trends, everything was there, especially knowing he was going to play mostly out of the slot, but it just did not accumulate into a good fantasy week. So sorry, guys, but that's why we're trying to do these tough starts and sits because, look, we could say start Odell Beckham Jr. and Le'Veon Bell every single week, but how are we helping you there? J.J. Nelson was next, 3.4. Antonio Brown, 3.4. Tough matchup again in Baltimore. Tyreek Hill, 3.5.
Tough matchup.
It was a slow game.
Well, not a tough matchup. I'm sorry. More likely he was just basically just taken out of the game.
He was scripted out. I mean they sold out to shut him down in the passing game, which is why Travis Kelce got going. Pierre Garçon, 3.6. No surprise there. Adam Thielen, 3.9. Again, Case Keenum didn't have a good game, so why would his pass catching options? Jarvis Landry, again, no Dolphins did well. 4 points. Marvin Jones, 4.2. Brandon Cooks, 4.2. I hope you guys sold high on him like I was telling you to. John Brown, 4.7. Martavis Bryant, 4.8. Rashard Matthews, 4.9. Sterling Shepard, 5.4. Doug Baldwin, 5.5. And then Devontae Parker, 6.9. I threw him on there because, again, no Dolphins outstanding. He didn't get a touchdown, and I usually put a 7-point threshold as the minimum to not be a dud. So, yeah. And then tight ends.
Baldwin got hurt, too.
Yeah, that's true. And then the tight ends, I started to type and I realized it was basically all of them, so I'll just fire through this really fast. Jason Witten, 0.9. Ryan Griffin, 1.3. Antonio Gates, 1.8. Jordan Reed, 2.1. Kobe Fleener, 2.1. Eric Ebron, 2.7. Jack Doyle, 2.7. Julius Thomas, 2.9. Kyle Rudolph, 3.4. Martellus Bennett, 3.9. Those are all just tight ends who got you less than 4 points, and the list goes on and on and on. And again, if you had one of these duds, which a lot of you did, and we did in some leagues as well, we feel for you guys, and this is why we talk about it, because this is therapy. Let's move on to some of our top headlines from around the league, starting at the quarterback position, where head coach Jack Del Rio of the Oakland Raiders said that Derek Carr has a transverse process fracture in his back, and he will be out for about 2 to 4 weeks. So, like we said, scary for a lot of the pass catchers there. They've got Baltimore this week. So, I mean...
EJ Manuel, meaning sit all of your starters.
Yeah, it's not an ideal situation. EJ Manuel, though, is a capable backup. I mean, he's got starting experience in the league.
Against the Ravens, though?
Against the Ravens
like
is tough.
Against the Ravens defense?
I don't like it, but again, if the Ravens, I said my Ravens, but well, they are my Ravens. But if the Ravens defense can't even stay off the field long enough to get a Gatorade, like we were talking about earlier, they're not going to have a chance to really stay competitive if they can't catch their breath. So we'll see how it works out. I mean, this is in Oakland, so I don't know. I'm not starting any Raiders this week personally. I don't think that's biased to say because, again, it is EJ Manuel, but you could, in a deeper league, make a, actually, I don't even know if I can say that because even Michael Crabtree's coming off injury. So I don't know.
So how about this? If you're hurting at the quarterback position, would you start EJ Manuel against the Ravens?
No, I would not. There are plenty of other good streaming options out there. So
there you go.
Yeah, no, I'll stand by that. All right, so though again, the Ravens don't travel well, but we'll talk about that more on Friday's show when we have a chance to analyze more of the stats and the trends. Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck will officially begin practicing this week. That's according to multiple sources what we're hearing, so that's good news there for the Colts. Tennessee Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota is currently day-to-day with a hamstring injury, so obviously we'll let you know when we know more. He, I believe, as of right now, is expected to play on Sunday. And then Minnesota Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer said that quarterback Sam Bradford does have a chance to play this week, of course, dealing with a knee injury, but we've heard this in weeks past. We'll believe it when we see it.
Yes, I need it.
Yes. Let's move on to the running back position, where Minnesota Vikings rookie running back Dalvin Cook, I think we kind of mentioned this, is done for the year. He tore his ACL, and this was a non-contact injury. Of course, he got leveled after his ACL got torn, but that's just he was in mid-stride. He has been placed on injury reserve. His season is over. So if you're a Dalvin Cook owner like I am, you are scrambling right now because it was such a sleeper pick and such a great thing that was working out. And now, yeah, that's fantasy football. Sometimes these injuries are tough to overcome, but you got to do it. You got to stay diligent and vigilant. Seattle Seahawks running back Chris Carson is out with a broken ankle, has been placed on IR. I have not heard if this is definitively like season ending or not, but I mean, I've heard of other people breaking their ankles and they are officially done for the year, so I'm assuming he's probably not going to be short-term IR'd. Though they could always activate him if he's coming back quicker than normal, so I guess keep an eye on him. But I don't think he's solidified a starting role enough in this offense that when he comes back, it's his role to reclaim. So I'm not holding on to him. He's droppable to me. Would you guys agree with that?
I agree.
Jason?
Yeah.
All right. And also, just a little bit of side note, remember, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back Doug Martin has completed his 4-game suspension. Of course, it was 3 weeks this season. He served 1 game at the end of last year, and then it was the 1 week bye. So it has been 4 weeks technically, and then 4 weeks this season. And so he's back, and again, did we talk about that on the show, or did we talk about that pre-show? We were talking about how you could start him. It's a decent matchup, but take into account that it's his first week back with the team. It's a short week. They play on Thursday night. So if I have better options, I'm giving him a week, personally. I think you guys agree with that. That was off the show.
Yeah, that was off the show. No.
Yeah, we talk football. We talk football a lot here. And then a little bit of wide receiver news. New York Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. apparently dislocated his finger on a catch. That was a gruesome-looking catch. Writhing in pain. He went out of this game multiple times. He also re-aggravated that ankle injury, that high ankle sprain. He is currently listed as day-to-day through some sources, but others are saying that it might be more severe than is currently being led on. And, of course, we will update you guys as we know more, but that's all we know at this point of this recording. And Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones is not expected to miss any time dealing with a hip injury. Again, it was a hip flexor, I believe, was the specific injury. So, yeah, those are some of your top headlines. Let's move on to our topic of the day, which is our top waiver wire targets for week number 5. Let's start, as always, with the running back position, and I'm going to start with a guy who I'm going to preach caution on. Actually, I'm going to preach caution on probably almost every guy I'm telling you to pick up, but I mean, hey, this is fantasy football. Bye weeks are coming.
This year, preach caution on everybody.
Yeah. I'm talking about Latavius Murray. He is owned in 47.6% of leagues, so he is up there. But Latavius Murray, look, Dalvin Cook going down, someone has to pick up the workload. I don't think he's as talented as Dalvin Cook. I don't think he's going to be as productive as Dalvin Cook. I think he's going to be competing with Jerick McKinnon. And in a lot of ways, I think Jerick McKinnon might actually become the workhorse. But, I mean, this is an opportunity to potentially get a lead back in an offense in the NFL, and the uptick in touches could be great. He's not right. He's still clearly not 100% off of his ankle injury from the offseason, but again, you have to take a shot at these guys because you don't know how it's going to play out. So I'm going to go ahead and say if you have space and you're desperate for running backs, or if you were the Dalvin Cook owner, Latavius Murray and or Jerick McKinnon, honestly, are guys that you should be targeting depending on what your thoughts are with this process. I like Jerick McKinnon, like I said, more, but he's also really banged up, so we'll see how it plays out. Latavius Murray is the big contract guy, which is why I'm kind of rolling with him, and Jerick McKinnon has had multiple years to get it done and hasn't, so I'm afraid this will be a committee, but we'll see how it plays out. CJ, your guy.
My guy, if you are one of the people that are just desperate to get involved in the Saints offense, and you failed with Adrian Peterson, you are too smart to put my man Mark Ingram in there because you already know what's up. But you see that Alvin Kamara, and you're like, you know what? This guy's getting the opportunity. He's getting the touches. He's the guy that Sean Payton loves and adores. And you're right. So that's why I'm saying to go pick you up some Alvin Kamara. He's only owned in 26.6% of leagues. So I would go get it. And he's been working out these last couple of weeks anyway.
You're picking him up as a stash for now until you see how things play out, or are you picking him up to start him?
I would, for me personally, I have to put him in. I mean, I've had Ty Montgomery. He's been hurting. I have leagues where I've had Dalvin Cook, and now he's out. So right now he's my number running back 2 in a couple leagues.
Yeah, I've had people write in that it said, I have Ty Montgomery and Dalvin Cook as my starting running backs. What do I do now? And that's rough. Though we did hear, and we didn't talk about this in the news, that the initial assumption with Ty Montgomery's injury is not as bad as originally thought, though no updated timetable as of yet.
I hope so.
We'll see, though. Jason, your guy.
Oh, my guy is Andre Ellington. So Arizona is trying to find themselves now without David Johnson, who was their entire offense last year pretty much. And we've seen some cream kind of rise to the top. And one of those, the members of that, is Andre Ellington. Now, a lot of people don't remember that David Johnson was actually drafted as Andre Ellington's backup. They wanted somebody to spell him who could do a lot of the same kind of things as Andre. They didn't realize at the time that David Johnson would actually prove to be better at those things than Andre Ellington was, and less likely to get hurt, which David Johnson was. Now, Andre Ellington is stepping back into that spotlight. He scored 15 points for you this last week. Did very, very well. He was the pass catcher, and he definitely looks like he's his old self again. So this is someone who's only owned in 3.3% of leagues, and while David Johnson is out, I expect him to take just as big a role pretty much every week, and maybe even an expanded role, depending on how well Chris Johnson does moving forward. So definitely someone that you should target. Arizona's going to use him as much as they can.
Yep, obviously an injury risk, but you're looking for the production while healthy. Let's move on to the wide receiver position, where I am targeting Geronimo Allison. He is the guy who's going to work his way in as the number 3 wide receiver now that Devontae Adams is going to miss some time, obviously. We talked about that earlier. He's only owned in 1.8% of leagues, and why not get a piece of a starting receiver in a Green Bay offense? He's been decent in the past, and now he'll get some good time and a decent workload. So in deeper leagues, Geronimo Allison is a guy that I like. CJ took the guy that I actually really wanted to, but Geronimo Allison is a good option as well. So CJ, why don't we talk about your guy?
My guy, and you know what? You have good taste, man. And you know what? I know you've been watching film, because this dude, yes, he got injured early in preseason. He was out, but this dude is a beast. And this dude, I knew if you can put him and pair him up with Deshaun Watson, they were going to make some good magic, and that's exactly what he did. On his first game back, that I might mention that, Will Fuller. Oh, my goodness, this dude out there, I was very upset seeing 18 fantasy points on my bench, but I was like, you know what? That's good. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that and insert that in when needed. And I'm telling you, if you're hurting at the wide receiver position and you want some of this Houston offense, go pick you up some Will Fuller. He is out there and ready to be picked up. Only owned in 2.5% of leagues. Oh, my goodness, dude. Go get him.
Yep. Jason, your guy.
My guy is young Trent Taylor, number 81 over there in San Francisco. This is a rookie. We've kind of talked about him a little bit the past couple of weeks. And it's not because of what you're seeing on the stat line, because he only scored 4.7 points this week, which is okay. He was playing Arizona. That's a tough defense. But this is a guy that consistently is getting targeted. He's that slot guy. He's a scrappy little dude. He's fast. He's kind of got that. He's kind of got that something. You see Hoyer looking for him. Because of that, I think he's going to start getting a lot more work and start getting a lot more into the end zone and things of that nature. So I definitely think this is somebody that you should probably roster as he grows within this league. Remember, this is his 4th game in the NFL. So he's going to grow, and he's going to get more confident and going to get better. And he's already beating people. He's beat, and we talked about that last week. Whenever he would make a cut, he'd be 2 yards away from the guy that was supposed to be covering him, and he'd be wide open. So this is somebody that is going to start getting the ball more often. He's only owned in 0.2% of leagues. Someone else that I need to mention real quick, and I apologize for doing this, but it's because I didn't want to look like a homer, but I have to mention him, as Jerron Brown over in Arizona. I don't know why you mentioned the Arizona player, but Jerron Brown has gone up every single week 7.3, 8.7, and this week 10.5. He actually went for 100 yards against San Francisco. It is San Francisco, so temper that. However, he is someone who's getting looked at. He is someone who's taking up a lot of the slack. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the year, he's someone that's going to start getting more of a workload, so keep your eyes open.
I like it. Tight ends, the target. I am, again, preaching caution here with all these guys because Geronimo Allison will only be until Devontae Adams comes back. Latavius Murray is going to be sharing with Jarrett McKinnon and or whoever they might end up bringing in. And I'm talking about Tyler Kroft now. I mean, with Tyler Eifert being down, Tyler Kroft clearly took a step forward, and they're using him as yet another red zone pass-catching weapon. He's owned in 0.1% of leagues. So if you are in deeper leagues, if you're in 2 tight end leagues, if you're in leagues that you just need help at the tight end position, and you want a guy who you know is going to get at least red zone targets, a low floor, high ceiling player, Tyler Kroft could be that guy. Now, for how long, who knows? But, I mean, if you're desperate, he's a guy who is definitely out there. So take a shot at him. I mean, there are worse things you could do. I mean, look at all these other big-name tight ends who are not putting up a single week like he just did. The next 2 guys are mainstays on this list, but they just seem to not be getting upticks week to week. So Jason stole my guy, so I'll throw it to Jason actually next. Jason, talk about my guy.
We have talked about him. This is the Cameron Brate of this year, guys.
He's slowly climbing.
This is the Cameron Brate of this year. Charles Clay. He is only owned in 34.2% of leagues. Guys, get this man. 11.3 points in the first week. He had a down week in the second week, but he has been lights out since then. 112 yards this week, 39 yards and a touchdown last week against Denver of all teams.
Yep.
This guy is money right now. Go get him. Start him with confidence. And
he's doing it week to week with volume. He's getting a large share of the workload. Yep. He's one of the top pass-catching options and targets on that offense. Get him. He's, as we mentioned, he's a top 3 tight end in fantasy right now, and that's not with a crazy broken play mixed in there. And CJ, this is a guy you've been harping on, and I can't blame you. This is a good pick.
Yeah, Evan Ingram, sorry. A guy that I really like.
Marvin Ingram.
No, not Marvin. This is brother. This dude, he gets the opportunity, man. Eli looks for him. I'm just waiting for him to get a little more involved in the offense. But once again, how I look at the tight end position, if you don't, outside of the big names, if you get more than 6 or 7 fantasy points from the guy, I think it's money. And this is a guy that's, harboring around that. So, he has the upside and potential to get more. But right now he's hovering around that side, and that's decent to me for a tight end.
I like it. So, yeah, that's going to do it for us today. Those are our top waiver wire targets. Please make sure you guys tune in on Friday when we will be talking about all of our starts and sits for week number 5. As always, please make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening. We're here every single Tuesday and Friday through the season. Guys, I have to preach this one more time. Stick with the program. Stick with the regiment. I can't tell you how many times I've seen teams go 0-4, 0-5, and come back and make the playoffs. People lose interest. People get these big injuries like what just happened this week. People start losing games and then they just stop caring. It's easy to climb your way back in, be competitive, and then depending on how things swing, it's still incredibly possible to make the playoffs. So stick with it. We will get you there as best we can. Make sure you guys join the community on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can follow us, as I've mentioned, all the time on Twitter. Please give us a follow at the FF Fanatics, or you can follow us individually. I'm at GPalmerFFF. CJ is at CJHickman89. Jason is at Jason Cabrera13. And as always, please make sure you guys subscribe and support the show over on patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. This week, we're going to be talking about fantasy points against. So all the best matchups in fantasy, because you can look at all these lists and be like, oh, well, this is a top pass defense. Well, is that against pass-catching running backs, wide receivers, tight ends? We're going to break all that down, know what's the best, what's the worst matchups. And, yeah, it's good information, guys. Now that we're a quarter of the way through the season, we actually have a decent amount of volume to break these stats down against. So if you want to check that out, again, go to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. All right, and please make sure you guys also rate the show on iTunes. That helps the show out unbelievably, and you don't have to spend a penny. So any parting thoughts, guys?
Well, you know what, man? We got some good guys in the listener league, and I just want to give a couple of shout outs to guys that taking me down these last couple of weeks. Charles and Tyler. You guys took advantage of some good opportunities. So I just Just want to chuck up a deuces at you guys and say congratulations on your wins.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I'm having a really rough week, a really rough season. I mean, I won a title last season, and then this season looks like I'm not even going to make the playoffs. You guys are doing real well in the Lister League. I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing. So good job, guys. Hopefully I can start getting a couple W's, stringing them together, and maybe try to make the playoffs. So
More than impressed, I'm just proud of our listeners.
Yeah.
I'm struggling as well, but that's because if anyone was at the draft, they know what happened to me. I got a player dropped on me for a ridiculous sum of money, and now I basically don't have a second running back. So that's definitely bringing my team down. But you do what you can. I'm gonna stay competitive, even if it doesn't play out well for me this season. I'm still gonna do my best. That's what you do. So we're out of here. Everyone, take care. Have a great week. We will see you for the Patreon show. If not, we will see you on Friday. Take care. Bye.
Bye.